For reasons unknown even to me, I decided this summer to read War and Peace and the Brothers Karamazov, also known as the Karamazov Brothers, back to back. I started with War and Peace. This is Tolstoy's expansive history of Russia from the years 1805 to 1812. And it's difficult to talk about this book without using the word history. But Tolstoy himself makes clear that he doesn't believe history is something that humans can ever grasp or define or even write about. What they do understand is each other. What they understand is people. And by the time this book ended, I felt like I had a whole new family. From Pierre, always searching for a cause to believe in, Natasha, always throwing herself so wholeheartedly into everything that she lost a little bit of herself in the process, Andre and his vaguely emo yearning for this glorious battlefield death. These are some of the best known characters in literature, and even the characters along the margins are so richly drawn. Maria and her quest for inner spirituality that's so complete that she refuses to see how people are taking advantage of her. Sonia and her curse to always kind of be the wallflower, the one has to sit back and watch. You get to know all of them so well. By the end of the book, you feel like you've revealed something, not just about the characters, but about humanity itself. Now, if the characters are the things I like best about War and Peace, there was one thing that really irritated me, which was this book is roughly divided into two halves. The first half covers the years from 1805 to 1811, and then the second 600 pages is only talking about the year 1812. And in that second half, Tolstoy repeatedly breaks into the narrative to explain the theme of his own book to you. Basically, that theme is that history is this big, ineffable thing, we will never understand it, and even from the lowliest serf to the greatest people, the Napoleon Bonapartes of the world, we're merely riding this tide, playing out our own lives on top of this giant wave that is history. The first time this happened, I was like, yeah, bro, I get it, I'm reading the book. By about the 10th time he did this, I was pretty frustrated, especially at the end, where the book ends in this amazing, poignant moment that left me with these characters that I felt I had really fallen in love with, and then he just kind of launches into yet another recap of his own themes. I wouldn't say that you can skip those chapters. You can't hike 90% of the way up Mount Everest and then not get to the top. I would say if I ever reread War and Peace, I probably will. I chose to read the Pivar Volokonsky translation. That's mostly because a lot of the book is actually in French, and I have just this much French I remember from high school. I thought it might be fun to try to translate those sections myself. I did like the translation. I don't have anything else to compare it to. I'll just give you a little reading from one of the most famous scenes in the book, where Andre has been wounded on the field of battle, and he's staring up, assuming that he might die. This might be it for him. There was nothing over him now except the sky. The lofty sky, not clear, but still immeasurably lofty, with gray clouds slowly creeping across it. How quiet, calm, and solemn. Not at all like when I was running, thought Prince Andrei. Not like when we were running, shouting and fighting. Not at all like when the Frenchman and the artillerist, with angry and frightening faces, were pulling at the swab. It's quite different, the way the clouds creep across this lofty, infinite sky. How is it I haven't seen this lofty sky before? And how happy I am that I have finally come to know it. Yes, everything is empty. Everything is a deception, except this infinite sky. There is nothing. Nothing except that, but there's not even that. There is nothing except silence, tranquility, and thank God. So I got done with War and Peace. That's 1,300 pages of Russian literature. Decided I was in the mood to do another 1,000. So I read The Brothers Karamazov. Like War and Peace, the characters were one of my favorite things about this book, but for almost the opposite reason. Where in War and Peace, the characters feel just achingly human. You can see yourself in all of them. In this book, every character almost seems to be an archetype, representing some facet of humanity. In The Brothers, you have Dmitri, who is this raging id. He's just this incredibly passionate, physical character. Ivan, he's the cold-blooded intellectual. And then the youngest brother, Alyosha, who is the innocent. He's studying to become a religious person. And then you have a fourth brother, possibly, who might be lurking around the edges of this novel. So in those four brothers, you have the id, the intellectual, the innocent, and the illegitimate brother. The inciting incident in this book comes about halfway through, but it's not exactly a spoiler. To say the inciting incident is the murder of the father of the four brothers, and the mystery of Who did this, and to what level do we all have some level of guilt for the sins of humanity? It's a very religious book. That theme of collective guilt is across the entire book. For instance, this is a speech that the starets, a religious figure, is giving to different people at the monastery. Anyone who has come here has, by that very act, acknowledged to himself that he is worse than any lay person in all that is on this earth. And the longer a monk lives within the walls of this monastery, the more deeply he will realize this. If this were not the case, there would be no need to come here at all. When, however, he realizes that not only is he worse than any layman, but is guilty before all, for everything and before everyone, for the sins of all men, individually as well as collectively, only then will the goal of our seclusion be attained. This is a book that I absolutely craved. It's one of the few books I can say I was just like racing through my day so I could get somewhere and continue to read this book. I absolutely loved it. There were a couple of things that I didn't like about it. One is that Katrina falls out of love with Dmitri and starts to fall in love with Ivan. This is never really explained. There's nothing that I can see that would attract her to Ivan. And Dostoevsky even talks about this in the book. He says his new passion, which was to influence the rest of Ivan's life, may serve as the basis for a future story, another novel, which I'm not sure I will ever undertake. I was like, it's kind of a major plot point. I would like to know what she saw in him. The second thing that irritated me a little bit about this book is that towards the end, the prosecuting attorney stands up and literally recaps the previous 800 pages of the book for you. Now, when the defense attorney stood up, I thought maybe what was going to happen was he was going to recap the book as well, but put a wholly different spin on the events, kind of like in the movie Anatomy of a Fall, if you've seen that. He says he's going to do that, but he doesn't. Which means that for about 50, 60 pages, you're basically just listening to the attorneys talk about the pages you've already read and kind of like recap the events of the book for you. And to me, that really slowed things down. It was a little bit frustrating, but I got over it. And I ended up with a book that I absolutely am going to go back and reread. It's going to be one of those Mount Rushmore books for me. So super different books. They come at it from super different places. War and Peace is very much about the counts, the princes, the people who think they're driving history, but at the end of the day, they're only playing out their own lives across it as it moves across the world. And then you have the Brothers Karamazov, which is a much more intimate story. It's a much more of a story about the different sides of human nature and how they come into conflict with one another. Now, I finished those two books. I was so excited. I couldn't figure out why has it taken me this long to get to these books. I read Crime and Punishment in college. Honestly, I don't remember it at all. So I ran out and I bought Devils and the Idiot and Anna Karenina. And I made my way through Devils. Honestly, I found this a much more difficult read. Maybe it was the translation, but I don't think so. I think it was just the way the book was constructed. In the Brothers Karamazov, you're able to grab onto the characters very quickly and really follow them across the course of those 1,000 pages. Devils has almost the opposite construction, where at the beginning you can't get a handle on any of the characters. It's like a camera lens that is slowly focusing, bringing them all into focus. The first 500 pages could just be subtitled like Russian people overreact to really minor things. That's all that happens throughout the first 500 pages. As you start to realize the cumulative impact of all these different actions and what they're doing to the characters, the book does pick up a lot of pace and it becomes sort of a true crime kind of feeling story. I just didn't like it as well. It's not a book that I can see myself going back to and reading over and over again. And so I think instead of diving right into The Idiot or Anna Karenina, I might stop, go back to some other books, and then return to them. But I will return to them because War and Peace and the Karamazov Brothers, truly two of the best books I have ever read. If you watch my channel, you know that a lot of times I close my videos by asking you to buy one of my own books. Frankly, I can't draw a clear line between anything I've ever written and Dostoevsky and Tolstoy. It just felt like too hard of a left turn. So instead, if you want to support the channel, try streaming a couple songs from my band. It is the Optimism Delivers House Band. I'm wearing the t-shirt now, so you've been looking at it the entire time. It's the Optimism Delivers House Band. Check it out. You can get it anywhere you stream music. Thank you for watching.